Welcome to the very first episode of Get Real with Veronica Morss. I'm Veronica Morss, a real estate professional, and I'm so passionate about helping my clients navigate every step of the buying, selling, and investing in real estate process. But real estate doesn't exist in a bubble. There are so many moving parts, from financing to legal planning, that really impact how we build and protect our wealth. And that's why I created this show. Really to have real conversations with top professionals in the industry who bring valuable insights, because homeowners, investors, and anyone looking to make smarter real estate decisions should know these people. Today, we're talking about something many people overlook until it's too late, and that's estate planning. And I couldn't think of a better guest to kick things off than Chris Small, an experienced estate planning attorney who helps families and investors protect their assets for the long term with CMS Law Firm. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me twice in 1 week. Excited to be the first guest.
Yeah. All right, Chris. So estate planning is not something that a lot of people associate with real estate, but obviously there's a huge important factor to it. So why is it so important for homeowners and investors to really have a solid estate plan?
So it's important for a couple of reasons. I think reason number one, you just want to make sure that your assets are protected if something happens to you, right? You want to make sure that your assets go to the right people at the right time. And you want to make sure that everything that happens seamlessly, easily, with as little work, frustration, money as possible.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of hard to say, but everyone dies at some point.
That's right. You don't know when.
You don't know when. So is there ever a time, like a time that you think, okay, this is the earliest to start doing this or the latest to start estate planning?
Yep. So really, everybody technically should have an estate plan. There are different parts of the plan that cover you in different sort of life stages.
Yep.
When you have kids, when you buy a house, those are going to be sort of like the events that really push you to do things. But estate planning covers you if you're alive but incapacitated, or when you die. So when you're incapacitated, you want someone that's going to help you make decisions, help you just through that period of time. If you don't have the right people named, then it's tragic.
So what happens if someone doesn't have a plan in place? What are the risks?
So it depends on what you're talking about, on what the risks are. So if you don't have a power of attorney, for example, and you're in a car accident and you're in a coma, no one is going to be able to help you manage your financial life, pay bills, do anything that needs to be done. Your people are not going to be able to help you with medical decisions. If you're married and you have separate bank accounts, your spouse is not going to be able to access those accounts, which they might want to do.
Yeah.
Okay. When you are gone, you don't have the ability to name the people that are going to be in charge of sort of administering your estate. You also don't really get to choose where everything goes, right? The state will choose for you.
Really,
So
the state chooses for you.
that's right. They're just a sort of a list of people that get stuff. And, you don't always get to pick who that is. And sometimes the people that you think are going to be in the place are not. And that's not good. So you're really just giving up control by not having a plan.
Right. So let's talk about properties then. Many clients, many families, they want to make sure that their homes are passed down smoothly and with pretty much the least amount of legal complications. So what's the process for that and what's that look like?
Yep. Okay. Let's start with what not to do.
I love
First,
that.
how about that? Okay. Which is what a lot of people think is the right thing to do, but is just wrong on so many different levels. That is giving your property away, like to your kids, for example, before you die.
Okay.
Okay. They think, oh, I'll give it to the kids. That way they got it. It's all good. I'll still live here and everything will be great. It's really not great because if something happens with your kid, it can affect your property.
I see.
There are also some big tax implications with gifting property, and there's a lot of upside when you die to giving your property away after the fact. Okay. So when it comes to doing the right thing, it doesn't necessarily need to be like a trust. It doesn't necessarily need to be one strategy or another, depending on what's important to you and where you want everything to go. But you really do want to try to employ some strategy to avoid probate. Okay. Which is super high level, just the process of transferring your assets to wherever you want them to go after you die.
And the probate process is rather a long one that you're working with the state, and on average, and that costs money as well. So on average, probates, I know it's probably not an easy answer, but on average, how long does that take?
Like vanilla probate is going to be probably like 9 months. It's going to be $5,000 to $10,000. You have to work with somebody like me, which always isn't fun. The process here is not actually super difficult, but it is a process, and you have to go through steps, and you can really avoid all of that if you just take a little bit of time up front to set things up.
Okay, got it. So next question as we go on is different strategies. You don't have to have a trust and a will, but I think so many people think that a will is just enough. And I think before, I met you, I did too. So what's the difference between having a will and a trust?
Okay, so first of all, if you have a will, anything that you transfer via your will is going to have to go through probate.
Got it.
So there are probate assets, they are transferred via your will.
So if you have a will and you're trying to avoid the probate process of the 9 months and the thousands of dollars, you're still going to have to go through that.
Correct. All the will does is tell the world where you want everything to go.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked earlier about how if you don't have a will, the state basically picks the order of distribution. What the will does is bypass all of that. So you could give everything that you want to your dog if you really wanted to. Yeah, it's fine. Right, exactly. Yeah, you have a cute dog, by the way, right? Yes, I know from, oh, you're Insta famous. So yes, yep. So you could give it all to your dog, but you still would have to do that through probate. There are other assets which are called non-probate assets. As the name implies, they are transferred outside of probate. This is like beneficiary designations on your financial accounts. It can be with the trust, creates non-probate assets. Transfer on death deed for real estate is like a beneficiary designation on your house. Joint tenants with rights of survivorship, also another way to do that, which is basically, let's say you and I are married, we're on a bank account together. If it's held joint tenants with rights of survivorship, when one of us dies, the other person just immediately becomes the full owner of the account. So all of these strategies are actually pretty easy to employ, and then they avoid sort of this hardship, which is probate.
So now we have the trusts, we have the wills, whatever one, works best for those people. What are the common mistakes you see people do when they're estate planning after that?
Well, if you make your plan with, a good attorney, not gonna name any names, then you don't have many pitfalls, hopefully, right? That's sort of the advantage of working with someone that knows what they're doing, is you get to avoid those mistakes. When it comes to someone that is not working with a professional, or I guess just really diving into it, several different things. One thing is people often don't execute their documents correctly. And if you don't execute them correctly, like literally just sign, there's witnesses, there's sort of just like rules that you have to follow. If you don't do that right, you don't get a do-over. It just doesn't work. It's like completely thrown out.
Do they let you know that it's incorrect, or?
You don't know till you die.
Oh.
Right? So I think I told this story the other day, actually. But so my classic story about this is blended family. Mom was the only living parent. There were 8 kids, 4 stepkids, 4 biological kids. Mom did her will, wanted to give everything equally to everybody. She dies. They come in and they're like, hey, we need to do this probate. We need to split everything up. I look at the will. I say, the will is not executed properly. It didn't have witnesses, I think, or something. There was just something that was not systemically correct. And so I had to tell them, hey, the will is no good. So here's what happens. 4 of you, the stepkids, are cut out. Right? And everybody was excited and happy at the beginning. And then when I told them everything's cut out, one of the biological kids goes, well, like Joe, my stepbrother, Joe, he doesn't need his share. So I'm just going to, keep that. And then it becomes like this whole thing.
And can't change it afterwards. So, I mean, Correct. What happens afterwards? It stays how it is. And
those 4,
that's the legal system.
Yeah. I mean, so if in that specific example, like if everybody's in agreement, like you can sort of work around it, but it only takes one. Only takes one person that doesn't want to do that, and everybody's out.
So hire a professional attorney to make sure that the docs are executed.
Professional. Here's another common problem or common thing that happens is people will craft things or do things that they think are going to accomplish one sort of goal, but it doesn't work the way that they want in reality, right? So for example, you create a trust and you put in your trust, I want to, my kid's not going to get anything until they graduate from college. That's great. Very ambitious. But what do you get? Like some pothead that goes through college and gets D's just so he can cash his trust check at the end of school. Yeah. So it's like these things don't always work the way that they want. Gifting your house to your kids. Okay. Biggest problem I see it all the time. I'm just like, it does not work the way that you think it's going to work. It's a bad choice. Don't do it. Little Johnny's going to get sued and the house is going to be gone and you're going to be on the street, So those are just some of the different things that consequences that can kind of happen, but mostly it's unintended consequences and just not understanding the way that things are going to actually operate and work when you're gone. That's the biggest thing. It's like these third level consequences. You think you're doing one thing, but you don't realize that thing is going to cause this other thing to happen. And then it's all jacked up.
Right. So in my business, in real estate, we work with a lot of investors that have multiple properties in their portfolio. So are there any specific ways or is there different ways to work that? Or what's the best way to really protect the entire portfolio at that point?
The attorney answer is always, it depends. Okay. And really, real talk, I'll tell you some different things, but if you are an investor and you're watching this, go talk to somebody before you employ these things, because everybody's risk tolerance is different. Their portfolio is different, like how they want to live their life is different. And so there's just like a bunch of different factors that go into it for what you want to do, right? For example, I have a few investment properties. They're not in LLCs, which I'm about to talk about, because I'm just like risk. I don't care. Like, let's go, right? Some people are super risk averse. They want to have everything locked down and they want to make sure that under no circumstances is there ever going to be any trouble. Mm-hmm. So those different kinds of continuums and things that are important are going to make a difference. Okay. With that being said, if you have multiple properties, here's the other thing I'll say too. If you have a property manager, Veronica, let's go. Okay. If you have a property manager, she doesn't have a property manager, by the way, people, for her properties. Okay. This is why she's getting, like, we talked about this. So if you have a property manager, that also, I think, in my opinion, takes a little bit of weight off of some of this asset protection strategy, because you have a professional in place to make sure you have a good renter, make sure the property's in good condition, some of these different things that can create the liabilities that you're trying to protect against. Mm-hmm. Right. So LLC is always going to be something to consider when you have rental properties. LLC, if you think about like a grain silo, I don't know if I'm from Kansas, so we have grain silos, you put the grain in there. It's like a big round circle. It will essentially silo your investment property from all of your other stuff. Mm-hmm. So if something goes bad inside of the silo, it can't touch anything outside of that.
On LLC.
Yeah. So anything inside of the LLC is basically the value of the property. You're limiting your liability to that. Mm-hmm. So you can do that. Some people want to do an LLC for every single property. This is where your risk sort of tolerance comes into play. Some people want to do series LLCs where you have like an LLC at the top and you have a bunch at the bottom. Don't do that. Okay. You're not rich enough for this yet. Okay. Get like 100 properties and then go talk to somebody that's like really knows what they're doing, but you're gonna be fine doing some other stuff. If you don't want to do LLCs, you can also always do, when you have a few properties, like probably under 5, maybe under 10, just like an umbrella insurance policy will often give you the coverage that you need. The important thing, if you have an umbrella insurance policy though, is you want to make sure your rentals are actually covered under that policy. Often you have to do like a specific rider, or you have to do some specific paperwork with your policy to make sure that it's included. If you do all those things, you're going to be fine. But the key to great investment properties is great tenants. Let's go. Okay.
This is very true. Yeah. Very well aware. Yep. We've seen good stories, bad stories, and they all revolve around the tenants.
100%. Yep.
All right. So we're buying more properties, we're getting in the role. And so how often should people be kind of revamping their estate plan, or at least reviewing it after owning maybe one property or multiple?
One property, multiple properties. I would say if you've done an estate plan and you're acquiring more properties, if you have worked with an attorney, you should probably at least reach out and just let them know what you're doing.
Okay.
If you have a trust, for example, and you don't have LLCs, you're going to want to buy the property in the name of the trust. Mm-hmm. Your attorney can tell you how to do that in like 30 seconds, as opposed to just like worrying about it and running in circles. But if your plan is the way that you want it to be, there's no need to update it, basically. So if your people are the people that you want and the positions and your distributions are the way that you want, you really don't have to update. Like for my clients, I send them out a reminder, sort of like it's basically just an email. It's automatic. Every year it goes out on their signing date and it just says, it's been another year. Take a look at your stuff.
Did anything change?
Think about this estate planning for 30 seconds this year. And if everything is still good, then everything is still good. And most people will know, right. Like Uncle Johnny went off the deep end. He can't take care of the kids anymore, or Aunt Susie yelled at me at Christmas, she's out, So like if you want to make those kind of changes, then you can. Right. It does. Trust me. It does happen. It does happen. But once you create it, it kind of is set it and forget it in a lot of ways. There's no maintenance. There's no updating that you need to do on a regular basis unless you want to change something to what you've already created.
Right. Good. Easy.
Yep.
So for people that don't have these big estates, or maybe they think that they need a big estate, or they're not homeowners yet, we know that starting estate plans at a young age, as soon as you can, is what you should do. But what are the process for that? I mean, I know I have some clients that would love to start a trust even before they buy their first home. Is that something that you see that's feasible and a good idea, or any processes people should take before they start having kids or big estates?
Yeah. So the answer is yes, you can take steps. You probably should take steps. Again, your aversion to risk is going to really dictate what you're doing here. Okay. When I'm 44, when I was 24, when I was 29, when I was probably 34, I was not thinking about estate planning. I was like, who cares? Yeah. This is dumb. If I die, let's go. It's fine. We're going to be good. When I had kids, it became important. For some people, though, it is important either because, let's say you're single, you're not married, you don't have any kids, but you have something specific that you want to go to someone, or you want to take care of someone specifically. If you work, at Microsoft or Google or something, often they have life insurance policies, that don't make you rich now, but if something happens to you, you really want that to go somewhere. Those are the type of things that you want to make sure get taken care of. The short answer, though, is you really should just schedule a time to talk to an attorney to figure out what it is that you're trying to do and what you really should do. For most of those people, like what I call a foundational estate plan is going to give you everything that you need. If you're not married, if you don't have kids, if you don't have a lot of assets, you're not really necessarily trying to protect against or for when you die. You're more trying to protect against what if you're in a car accident and you need your people to be able to take care of you, and you don't do that, right? So like, for example, a lot of the planning that we do for people in that sort of scenario, not a lot of assets, younger, is we'll do powers of attorney and medical power of attorney for people's kids. Mm-hmm. So like when our clients' kids turn 18, they become adults. So the parents can't help them with really anything.
Right.
You do a power of attorney, medical power of attorney, super simple. And it gives the parents a lot of ability to help the kids.
Yeah. And definitely something we don't think about us dying at a young age, but we also don't really think about if we're incapacitated. So Excellent points. And I think it's a great idea for everybody.
Yeah. Here's one more too that I see all the time, which is, let's say you're not married, you don't have kids, but you have a significant other, someone that you're sharing a house with, someone that you're sharing space with, mm-hmm. someone that you are sort of like doing life with, but you're not married, so you still have all separate accounts. Can be super dangerous if something happens to one person because you're cut off financially from that person, right? Yeah. So if you're sharing bills, if you're doing all this stuff, it can cause huge problems. And the boyfriend or the girlfriend doesn't even have to be the power of attorney. Like you could make it your parent or your friend or whoever you want. But what you really want is to be able to keep maintaining those sort of life things that you have going on until you're back on your feet. So it's those type of things that happen that are killer, and nobody knows about it until it happens. And you're like, how can I get my access to my boyfriend's money to pay the rent?
That's why we're having this conversation.
So do it. So I actually have a question for you. When you have completed the purchase of, when you're done closing on a house with your clients, do you talk at all about asset protection? Do you talk at all about this type of stuff? How does it work into your flow? And is it hard to do considering everybody's happy now that the house is sold?
It really depends on each family. And I've come across some families that have their trust set up. But I think a lot of it is just people don't know. And that's why I want to be able to chat with you and talk to people about you, because just like you've been explaining to me over the years, before that, I had no idea. And even my own family, like I think my parents still have, their will. And I've told them, hey, maybe you should look into a trust, but they don't know what they don't know. So a lot of times what I've been trying to do is now, post-sale is kind of the easier discussion to have when I say, hey, you've owned your house now. I still want to be a resource for you. Do you know how to protect your home? And that's when I can say, hey, I know this person, or I don't want to go into too much detail because it's not my profession, right? But at least I can steer them in the direction of who to talk to. Because I do think it's important. And I think it just still creates value on our end to keep that conversation going.
Yeah. It also is kind of weird to go like, hey, congratulations, you bought your house. Now, if you die.
Because
Okay.
let's be honest, everybody dies.
That's right.
Yeah, I don't try to be that morbid with my clients.
Yeah.
But it's a push in of, hey, these are some great resources now that you have this asset.
Yeah. What is the most important thing that people need to do after they buy their house?
Oof.
Generally.
Generally. I guess I would say like making sure their insurance is tight, especially nowadays. Now with us, I'm like, make sure it's protected in regards to your kids and who this is going to go to. You have a lot of first-time home buyers that they're so in the flurry of buying a house, they don't even think about that afterwards. And, a lot of them around here have young children. So now I am definitely kind of guiding to say, hey, these are the steps you need to protect this asset now. It's not really like fun conversation to have, but it is something that you need to think about.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a super eye-opening, partially morbid conversation, but I was very happy to have it with you because I learned a lot. And like we said, I just don't think people really associate real estate with estate planning all the time. And obviously it's such an important factor, as we've learned today. So thank you so much for being here. We appreciate your insights.
Yeah, I appreciate being here. I feel bad for guest number 2. And, the way I think about estate planning overall is it doesn't have to be something that's scary. It's really like a powerful tool that you can use to protect your family and really make sure that things happen the way that you want. So it's like an empowering thing, more so than something to be afraid of, because we're all gonna die.
That's the motto. I love it.